Hi guys, this is Mike at Akamai, and in this short video we're going to be giving an overview of the mPulse Aggregate Resource Waterfall dashboard. It's a cool new dashboard that allows you to see both how long resources are taken to load, but also where they're loading in relation to the overall page load time. This dashboard is available for mPulse Enterprise customers. To view the dashboard, log into mPulse and go to the dashboards and look for a dashboard called Aggregate Resource Summary or something like that. If you don't see the dashboard there already, you may have to create it. It's a pretty quick process to create it though. Just go up to the upper left, go New Dashboard, give the dashboard a name, something like Aggregate Resource Summary, or Aggregate Resource Waterfall, and pick a widget layout. I'm going to use the large widget layout here. Hit the next button. On the left hand side what you'll see are all the different widgets, which are the different graphical displays of the mPulse data. Look for the one called the Aggregate Resource Waterfall and drag that into the dashboard. You've now got a working dashboard for the Aggregate Resource Waterfall. We may want to also add filters so that we can filter to different device types or page groups, etc. To add the filters, just modify the dashboard by clicking the Edit Dashboard button here. It'll pull up the lower pane at the bottom. Decide if you want to put the filter on the widget or the dashboard level. I'm going to put it on the dashboard at the top of the dashboard here. And go ahead and add the filters here. I'm going to add a filter for country, for device type, and for page group. But you can add any other filters you want, as well as any custom dimensions that you've created will appear in the list as well. When you hit the apply button, those filters appear at the top of the dashboard and are ready to use. Now, in the Aggregate Resource Waterfall, it's processing a lot of data, so probably the best practice is to not use a very large data set. 24 hours or less, maybe maximum of 3 days or so. It'll take you 30 seconds to a minute, maybe a little bit longer depending upon the size of the data set. When the dashboard does load, you're going to see this really cool looking display. A couple things to note about that. First of all, this x-axis here is everything normalized to the page load time of the document. 100% here is the full page load time of the document, and you can see other vertical lines for different important events on the document, including render start, DOM content loaded, time of first byte, etc. Also, what you're going to see on the left-hand side, all the resources are grouped by the domain that serve the resources, and they're color-coded by the type of resource. Images are kind of shown up as this purple, HTML is shown up as this blue, CSS is this green, and JavaScript is this gray. If you'd like to look at just one type of resource, you can just hold your mouse over any type of resource and it'll kind of focus on that. Or if you double click, it'll hold the filter for that one so that you can scroll up or down and look at other domains for those resources. It's a pretty tall list of resources and domains, and we've got kind of everything represented here. Double click again to kind of release the filter there. So very easily with this dashboard you can see kind of where different resources are loading in the page. Here you can see that www.acme.com, which is the main domain, has all of the HTML loading early in the page, which makes sense. It's going to be the first item you download in the page. Then after that a lot of images loading. You can also see the different resources that are loading after page load. From the acme.com domain we've got some resources as well as some of this akamihd.net resources that are loading after page load. The opacity of the item indicates how common that resource is. Something that's very see-through is something that's not on very many pages, whereas something that's very opaque is something that's very common to all pages, maybe the logo for the site or something like that. Since these things are kind of stacked on top of each other, sometimes it's hard to tell which ones are see-through and which ones are kind of opaque. So you can kind of click on any domain and it'll spread out the resources for that domain, as well as giving you the list of all the actual individual resource names. And so you can see kind of right away which resources were loading early in the page, which ones are loading later in the page, and which ones are pushing up against the page load time or loading after the page was completed. If you want to kind of go back up to the overall view, just hit the X here and that'll kind of close that down and take you back up to the top. So when you're looking for resources that might be blocking the page load time, one thing to look for is any resources that have a flat edge kind of coming up to the page load time. Essentially that's indicating that the resource, as soon as the resource completes, the page load is done. Or the page load was probably waiting for that resource before it was completed here. And so that indicates that this resource might be blocking the page load time. So that kind of flat edge there is something, a level of suspicion that you might have for figuring out kind of what's going on with these things. One other point to note, and I'm going to kind of drill into the one of the domains here to give a little bit more detail on this, is that when you mouse over any individual resource, it's going to pop up with a mouse over with more detailed information about that resource here. Here you can see kind of what percentage of the resources were still in flight at that percentage of page load time. Particularly for this particular resource, you can see that 35% of the resources were still loading at 35% of the page load time. And as we move to the right here, you can see that the resources finished loading, the percent resources goes down. It's down to 21% of resources were still in flight. Still in flight indicates that the resource request had been made, but the resource hadn't completed. So you can see kind of how many of them were typically done as you approach the overall page load time for the app. You'll also see things such as the average size of the resource. Now the size information will be available whenever the resource is served from the same domain as the main page. So if the main page is www.acme.com, all of those resources will have size information. Any resources served from other domains than the main page will only have size information if the resources have a header called time and allow origin. And in the follow-up slide at the end here, we'll kind of show you where you can get more details on how to set that time and allow origin header. Lastly, you'll see that we also have information here on the cache hit rate. What percentage of these resources were pulled from local browser cache? So hopefully you can see that this is a pretty helpful tool for understanding both what are the different domains that are serving content to your site, what types of resources are being served from each of those different domains, where are those resources serving within the page, which of those resources might potentially be blocking the page load and which are serving after the page load, and again, how big are the resources, etc., assuming you have the time and allow origin or for first-party resources. For more information on the Aggregate resource Waterfall, please go ahead and see the Aggregate Waterfall Details blog post written by Simon Hearn, who developed the dashboard here, available at this link. Or if you want more details on the time and allow origin header, go ahead and go to w3.org or take a look at the Akamai post about time and allow origin in the image manager header. Hopefully this has been useful to you, and thanks for watching.